There is something amazing about the stage and what comes alive on it. It creates a space which doesn't exist anywhere else except really in your mind. And when it becomes musical, it transcends even the normal experience we have in life. A new musical coming up, a musical, how do we describe this? A hilariously heartwarming dragsicle called Flying Solo coming up in very short order with CJ Norris. And I have CJ on the line right now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, let's talk about Flying Solo in broad terms here. What is this performance? I'm just imagining it's bigger than life. Am I starting off in the right size?
Absolutely. I would say it's larger than life. So it's a jukebox musical that features 10 different pop Broadway hits from 10 different shows. And it tells the story of Rosemary, who's a young, wide-eyed Southern belle looking for love and her place in the world. And so it is a journey. It's just me on stage. I've written, produced, and star in it solo. And it's full of comedy, but also touching moments in a variety of songs from different musicals that you may or may not know.
So, I mean, first of all, that's an enormous effort. 10 different musicals represented by 10 different songs. Take me back to when you decided to do this. Is this something of a collection of some of the other works you've done, or is this something brand new for you?
No, this is brand new for me. So essentially when the theater world started reopening last summer, Fundy Fringe Festival in St. John was going to be taking place, and I thought, you know what, I want to submit something. And I had been really exploring drag a lot over the pandemic, and just binging a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, and realizing that it can be so much more than maybe what people initially think drag is. And I thought there's definitely an intersection for a theater actor, comedian like me. So basically, I decided this is my opportunity to perform all of these fun Broadway showstoppers that I'll never get the chance to perform as a man. So I kind of started with the songs that I really wanted to do and had fantasies of performing, and then I wove a story throughout it to create a full production.
So, is your background musical theater? Is that where you're starting from, or is your background theater that you love music?
No, musical theater, actually. I pretty much exclusively do musical theater. I've been certainly privileged to do a lot of shows at the Capitol Theater here in Moncton, and have been involved in community and professional theater since I was, a kid. So that is where my performance background stems from. And the last several months, I've just been exploring some other avenues. I've been doing some stand-up comedy a little bit, which I would call this show sort of a hybrid of stand-up, storytelling, and musical theater.
So when you said just a couple of years ago, when the pandemic was on and theater was unfortunately having to reduce its presence in the world, then you started looking at drag. What was the appeal? Was it because you loved these songs, but you felt like it needed to have a female presentation, or was there something about the bombastic nature of drag? What was it that drew you into that?
Really, I think it was just curiosity. I've been exposed to drag for years. And I've been able to dabble in it with some musicals. I played the character of Angel in Rent a couple of times. But I wouldn't call that like full on drag. And, it was a scripted thing that I kind of walked into. So yeah, I think it was just, I had a lot of time on my hands, and this TV show that people would have assumed I was watching for years because of just my bubbly personality and love for the performing arts. So I just started from the beginning and watched it all through. And I just, when you realize there's a bucket list box that you haven't checked yet, and you have to check it. And I was like, this is the time to start doing this. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to be too hesitant about it. I'm just going to dive in. Even though I'm a newbie, I'm still learning. But everyone does drag in a different way. And so I've just really combined my existing love for performing arts and the campiness of flashy theater and put a wig on it.
Well, and not only this, I mean, you don't want to, think of too much about it, but you wrote an entire thing. You've got 10 songs you're performing from 10 different musicals, and I'm assuming there's going to be a costume change or 10 in here too.
Yeah, that's it. 1 or 10, depending on how many I can successfully execute myself on stage.
Well, I mean,
they all happen in a very in a very planned out way. You're right. I don't know why I said I didn't think about it too much. I guess the decision to start doing drag didn't take much thought, but it's a very this production has to be very choreographed in a way and planned, because I also run my own sound cues from the stage, because there is some improv involved, and I do sort of go off script, if you will. It's my own words, so I can change them if I want. But I love to interact with the audience, and there will be moments where, somebody will say something or something will happen and I'll riff on it, or I need extra time to finish my costume change. Everything is really sort of under my control, but also, that's a lot of pressure for me on stage, but I like it. I perform well under pressure.
Well, and you have some improv background as well, so but I find that amazing that you're not only going to be writing and doing this, improving while you're also trying to do this. I mean, do you always set yourself this highest stake? Is this a pattern that people should know about your work?
I guess so. I've never been the type of person to think simplistically. I've had to learn how to kill your darlings, as they say in the theater, which sounds super dramatic. It's when you have ideas and you want them all to work, and sometimes you have to sacrifice one for the other. But yeah, it does sound really, really complex and chaotic. And it is, but I thrive on that. Like, I've done a fair amount of dinner theater in my life, and with that comes the necessity of having to improvise. And if things go wrong, an amp or a chord isn't working, one person's babbling to the audience while the other person's changing batteries in something. So now I'm just all of those people on stage at once. And yeah, I guess I just like a challenge.
Wow. And that's fantastic. One of the things that always makes me wonder about something like this, because I'm typically in the audience and I always feel, I guess safe is probably the wrong word, but I feel separated from the stage. I feel like that I'm in the audience, and then what's going on the stage is happening there. In something like a dinner theater, I can see where there's much more intimacy with the audience because you're literally in and among them. How do you bridge that when you're on a stage in a theater? How do you become that interactive? Is there things you're looking for, or?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been interesting finding venues that provide that atmosphere. Like, I wouldn't want to perform this show necessarily in a full-size theater. Black boxes work great. I just start immediately by breaking the fourth wall, right? Like, I'm talking to the audience, I'm telling them my story, I always try and make sure that there's a bar in the room, or at least in the lobby, so maybe they get lubricated a bit before the show. But I just invite that. And normally when I'm performing in like a full house, and it's a show where you don't break the fourth wall, I hate looking at the audience because I don't like seeing them. I don't like being distracted. But in this, I want to see them and I want to see their expressions. So it's cool. It's like, I don't know, the difference between soccer and soccer baseball, I would assume. I don't know sports enough, but given the name, I can make that assumption.
And I mean, with With this character that you have written, I don't know how often you've written characters before, but do you find yourself fully inhabiting this character? Is it deeper than, say, doing a stage play of someone else's words or not, or one that doesn't have this improv component?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily deeper, but she came very naturally to me. I love the Southern accent, so she's definitely a Southern gal. I love Dolly Parton, so she's very influenced by her. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just I like to say I think this character Rosemary has been living in some sort of attic apartment in my brain for my entire life, and I've just finally decided to let her out. And so I think she's a combination of people I idolize and then part of myself. So it feels very natural to inhabit her, and I always know how she would say something or how she would react to something. It's not something that I really had to think too hard about in terms of her mannerisms or her way of speaking.
I mean, living in an apartment in your brain, probably now about time to start paying rent on that.
Yeah, well, that's it. We're trying to make money off this, Rosemary. That's why I'm doing these shows, trying to sell these tickets.
So tell me about the musicals you chose. What are some of the famous ones that came immediately to mind when you were thinking of this project?
Definitely Thoroughly Modern Millie. That's actually the opener of the show. I feel like that's a lesser known musical. Starred Sutton Foster on Broadway in like the early 2000s. And she's also, a woman who's left the small town for the big city and is looking for love. So that made sense. And then Shrek. I love the character of Fiona, who was also originated by Sutton Foster on Broadway. I don't know if you can tell, but I have some favorite actors. Yeah, so I love the campiness and the sort of cartoon aspect of Shrek the musical. A newer musical that people may know is Waitress. It just finished its very successful run on Broadway. The music for that was written by Sarah Bareilles, who's also a favorite of mine, and she actually played the role a couple times. So it really spans. They're all certainly in like the pop genre, so they're accessible to the audience, but really spans quite a few, a couple decades in terms of their history.
I feel in a way this is a callback to the sort of the cabaret lounge of the yesteryear, the one we see mythically represented in some older classic movies. We're talking about Rosemary Clooney and people like that would take that room and make it their own, and they were the concentrated center of attention. Is that part of the draw for you, is to kind of create that atmosphere once again?
I would say, sure. Yeah, it's definitely cabaret is the right type of word. Like as a drag performer, that's certainly my shtick is, a little bit of that old slapstick comedy kind of vibe, obviously with live vocals. So yeah, I definitely look to performers of yesteryear in terms of inspiration.
And are we looking at is this Rosemary confessing her story here? Is this a snapshot of her life, or is it more the ambitions of this young woman from somewhere else to become big? Like, are we looking at the retrospective of someone who's been on the scene for a long time, or the fresh-faced newbie who's desiring to be the big star?
So Rosemary actually isn't trying to be a star. What her ambition is just to find a man and settle down and have that white picket fence lifestyle. And then, through her journey, she realizes that, of course, there's more to life than that. But it was interesting when I was writing it, because I want everything, like every song is a bit of a flashback to a certain part of her journey. So she's kind of telling it in retrospect, but you're seeing things unfold in front of you as if we're going back and forth in time. So yeah, it's like she's retelling her story and then stepping back into those moments for every song. And so there's a costume and a look that goes with every one that sort of represents the musical that comes from. I wanted to do a bit of a nod to it. So I guess you could say that she also has a sartorial journey. She might seem a bit schizophrenic in terms of her style, but in the end, through telling her story and just in the last moment, she has an aha moment, and I hope that the audience goes on the journey and sort of feels that realization with her that there's a relatable moment for them. That's the goal.
Once you started down this path of creating it, was there anything that really surprised you about what ended up happening? Was it a catharsis, or was it a discovery or a journey?
Absolutely. I don't know whether I started with the message that I wanted to send. Like I said, the pieces just kind of fell together. The next time I go to write something, I think it's going to be more of a struggle, because this sort of became not semi-autobiographical, but, I've been a single person for a lot of my adult life, and I see friends going in and out of relationships and, trying to find their happiness that way. And for me, it's always been, no, I'm number one. And, when I find someone to bring into my life in that capacity, it will have to be somebody who really fits what I want to do, and to not be cutting back on yourself to make room for somebody else. And so through telling her story, I think I've really sort of pitched that message in a lighthearted way. And audience members have told me that they were inspired by that, or they felt that was relatable. So yeah, like I said, I didn't try too hard to push or preach a message, but I'm glad that it gets across in some way.
How many times have you had a chance to perform this so far?
I would say in total, maybe 10 or so. I premiered it last summer, here in Moncton. I just did one night, and then I took it to the Fundy Fringe Festival. I did 3 shows there. And I was lucky enough to pick up the Fan Favorite Award. So that encouraged me to want to continue with this production. And the plan was always to sort of do a first version and then a second, maybe evolved version. So that's what this is, which I've done in 3 cities now so far this summer. It's an upgraded, same story, but more humor, all new costumes, and I would say a breath of new life into something.
And you keep discovering new things as audiences react to it in different places?
Yeah, I would say. Also, like, trying to infuse my new I guess, skills of a stand-up comedy. I wanted to make it, I wanted to spread the humor throughout, and make it a little bit more punchline-y, a little bit more Lucille Ball. So yeah, I think I've just sort of taken, adding my new skills as I learn them and improving it.
You're mentioning that this combines some of your passions, some of your loves together, and it's evolving a little bit as it goes along. I'm wondering if you feel like this is a character you want to return to time and time again, or is this you want to just have the one capsule statement of who Rosemary is?
You know what? That's something that's been crossing my mind a bit lately as I'm looking to the future and what I want to create and characters that I want to create. I think she's definitely somebody that I'd pull back out. If not her exactly, definitely her essence. I don't know what it is about doing a Southern accent, but it's disarming, right? Like, somebody shows up with a fresh baked apple pie and you're just like, are we best friends? Like, so definitely it's bubbly, it's easy. It's easy for an audience to warm up to somebody like that.
You mentioned, for example, Dolly Parton is one of the inspirations. Have you ever met a Rosemary? Has there ever been a person in person you've met who compares, or who you feel may have inspired or you want to live up to?
That's a really good question. I don't believe I have.
I really hope that
No,
happens to
I
you
don't
one
think
day.
it
I hope that after one of your shows, a Rosemary comes up to you and just in that same voice, just talks to you about how much you've resonated with her.
and then I'll think that she's just like playing with me, and I'll just keep, it's improv is yes and we'll banter back and forth, and then I'll awkwardly realize, oh, she's this is her.
The real thing is in front of me. Tell me a bit about these costumes. Are these something you've come up with as well, or did you find a wonderful costumer to help you?
So I found pieces that I wanted for each number. Like I said, I started with wanting to have at least a nod to what the character or the song from the Broadway show that I'm representing. So I found pieces that I thought would work. And then I worked with somebody to alter them and embellish them and fit them right to me. So it's bit of thrifting and a lot of crafting.
Well, it sounds like the whole process has been just delightful. Like, you keep smiling every time I ask you a question about this, which, I mean, obviously you want to represent the best light, but I think at the same time it's a genuine joy, a glow that comes out of you when you're talking about this. So I'm happy for you because you're happy doing this, and it can show, and I'm sure it's going to show on stage as well.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, it really feels like my element, and something that I feel fulfillment out of.
Well, you can catch CJ on stage as Rosemary in the upcoming FLYIN SOLO presentation. That'll be at the Charlotte Street Arts Centre on the 24th of September. And I believe after that, you're in Sackville?
Sackville on October 1st.
Well, be sure to check it out. What's the best place for someone to look you up and find out more about this and your work?
So my website, stagesofcj.com, has info on the show, and that's where you can get tickets as well. They're available on Eventbrite, but I have links to both the Fredericton and Sackville productions right on there, as well as a little write-up on what the show is.
Well, I want to thank you so much, CJ. Anything else you'd like to say about the show before we go?
Well, I don't think so. I think we covered it all, but I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see what the Fredericton audience brings out in me.
I'm waiting for the banter. That'll be fun, I'm sure. Thank you so much, CJ.
Thank you.